In a time when financial matters are shaky all over the place, two big countries, Australia and Canada, are finding themselves in a bit of a money mess. Both usually have a good grip on their money game, but things are getting tough these days. That's why we're here, taking a closer look at how these struggles are hitting them hard. Now, some questions might arise, like how the global economic downturn left its mark on the robust economies of Australia and Canada. What are the pivotal elements that are adding weight to their financial burdens? And amidst these trials, do the policies currently at the helm have the strength to steer these countries through this rough situation? To evaluate the economic struggles of Australia and Canada, we will compare them across 5 criteria: GDP growth, inflation rates, unemployment, debt-to-GDP ratio, and housing market stability. Each country will be scored on a scale from 1 to 10 for each criterion, with 1 indicating severe struggle and 10 representing economic stability. 1. GDP growth. Australia's economy displays a certain toughness, with GDP numbers that tell a story of endurance. In the face of a worldwide economic chill, Australia's GDP has seen a small but noteworthy upward adjustment. The growth pace is gentle, yet it's a sign of the economy's grit against the tide of global challenges. While the appetite for goods and services within the country has cooled a bit, government spending and a wave of new residents have given the economy just enough lift to stay in the air. Therefore, Australia's economic performance, marked by this modest expansion, earns a score of 7 out of 10, signaling a capacity to hold steady when the world economy is losing steam. On the other hand, some unforeseen challenges have recently marked Canada's economic landscape. The economy has shrunk, with the latest figures showing an annualized contraction that wasn't anticipated. This downturn signals an economy that's stumbling to keep its pace, struggling more than expected to push forward. The Bank of Canada had set out more optimistic forecasts, which the economy has fallen short of, catching many experts off guard. This slowdown can be traced back to several factors. Businesses are holding back on stocking up their inventories, a sign that they're not expecting a big rush of customers anytime soon. Exports have also lost some of their spark, and Canadian households are tightening their belts, spending less on goods and services. All these elements combined have led to a performance that's been less than stellar. With these hurdles, Canada's economic score settles at 5 out of 10. It's a number suggesting that a significant effort will be needed to regain lost ground and restore the economic growth that Canada is searching for. 2. Inflation rates. Inflation is like a fever for the economy. It tells us that the prices are going up. For Australia, the fever had been relatively high, but now it's starting to come down. In the September quarter of 2023, the annual Consumer Price Index, which measures the average change over time in the prices paid by consumers for a basket of goods and services, was 5.4%. This was a bit of a relief compared to the 6.0% rise in the June quarter. Earlier in the year, the inflation rate had soared to 7% in the first quarter, which was the highest it had been in over 30 years. But why did this happen? Well, the costs of building new homes went up a lot, and so did the prices of electricity and gas. The prices were climbing because the costs for the things needed to make them, like materials and energy, were also going up. But there's some good news. The prices of electricity and gas are expected to stop rising so much. The Reserve Bank of Australia, which is like the doctor for the economy, had forecasted that inflation would stay high until late 2025. But now, it looks like the fever might go down faster than they thought. Thus, Australia, grappling with the dual challenge of taming inflation while trying to boost growth, earns a modest 4 out of 10. Turning our focus to Canada, the inflation narrative presents a mixed bag. As of September 2023, the inflation rate had dipped to 3.8%, a slight decrease from the previous month's 4.0%. This drop, albeit small, was a deviation from the expected static rate of 4%, offering a glimmer of relief. However, the Bank of Canada has indicated that this is not the beginning of a rapid decline. Instead, high prices are likely to hover around 3.5% well into mid-2024. This suggests that the economy is not yet out of the woods when it comes to the fever of inflation. The central bank's projections extend the timeline for a return to the ideal inflation rate typically around 2%, to the year 2025. Thus, Canada, despite facing inflationary pressures, seems to be on a steadier path to recovery, warranting a higher score of 6 out of 10. Before we unpack the intricacies of unemployment rates, pause for a second to hit that subscribe button and become a part of our growing community. A quick thumbs up on this video goes a long way in supporting our content and keeps you connected with us for more insightful journeys like this one. 3. Unemployment. When we look at Australia and Canada, we're checking out two big countries with lots of people and, well, job opportunities. But not all are the same when it comes to how their economies are doing, especially when we talk about jobs. Let's start with Australia. Right now, things are looking pretty good there. As of the last part of 2023, the number of people without jobs is pretty low, just 3.6%. That's a small number, and it stayed the same for a bit. This means that most people who want to work can find a job. This is great because when people work, they have money to spend on things they need or want. This spending helps other businesses make money, and then they can hire more people too. It's like a big circle where one good thing leads to another. Now, even though the job market is doing well, it's not perfect. There are still some people who can't find work, and that's not good. But the government and companies are trying to fix this. They want to create more jobs so that almost everyone who can and wants to work will have a job. Australia's employment scene, somewhat shielded from economic tremors, scores a solid 9 out of 10. In Canada, the picture is a bit different. More people are finding themselves without jobs. The unemployment rate has gone up to 5.7%. That's not a huge number, but it's bigger than in Australia, and it's been growing. When people don't have jobs, they can't spend money in the same way. This means businesses might not make as much money, and then they can't hire more people. It's another circle, but this one isn't so good. The job market in Canada is what some people call softening. That's just another way to say it's not as strong as it could be. Even though new jobs are being made, they're not enough to keep the unemployment rate from going up. This is a sign that the economy isn't as healthy as it should be. When the economy isn't fit, it's like when a person isn't healthy. Things don't work as well as they should, and it can take time to get better. Canada's job market, with creeping unemployment, scores a 7 out of 10, indicating mounting concerns. 4. Debt-to-GDP ratio. When we talk about the debt-to-GDP ratio, we measure a country's debt against its total economic output. It's like comparing how much you owe on your credit card to how much money you make in a year. Let's look at how Australia and Canada stack up in this regard. In Australia, the debt-to-GDP ratio is a bit like a weather forecast for the economy. It tells us if there might be trouble ahead. As of 2023, the numbers suggest that Australia's economic sky is cloudy, but not stormy. The country's debt is expected to hit around 36.5% of its GDP by the end of the 2026-27 financial year. This is like saying that for every $100 Australia makes, it owes about $36.50. The number has grown over time, mainly because the government is spending on essential things like schools and hospitals. Australia's score for managing its debt compared to its income is a cautious 7 out of 10. Now, heading over to Canada, the picture is a bit different. Canada's economic health, as of March 2023, is reflected in its debt-to-GDP ratio, which stands at 66.4%. This means for every $100 Canada's economy produces, it owes $66.40. This ratio has seen a slight improvement from the previous year, when it was at 71.3%. Despite the improvement, reports are suggesting a higher debt-to-GDP ratio for Canada. For instance, the International Monetary Fund has reported a ratio of 102%. Such variations can result from different approaches to calculating either the debt or the GDP. The high debt-to-GDP ratio can be attributed to the government's spending aimed at supporting the economy through difficult periods, notably the COVID-19 pandemic. This spending was essential to bolster the economy, but also led to an increase in national debt. The Canadian government, however, particularly under Prime Minister Justin Trudeau, has expressed intentions to reduce the debt-to-GDP ratio over the medium term. This commitment may involve implementing measures to cut spending or increase government revenues. For now, Canada's score here is a more concerning 4 out of 10. 5. Stability of housing market. Next, we'll see how this all ties into the housing market. another big piece of the economic puzzle. The housing market in Australia is a big deal because it tells us how easy or hard it is for people to buy or sell houses. In 2023, it has been like a seesaw, sometimes up, sometimes down. A report from PropTrack said that home prices went up by just under 5% in 2023. In big cities like Sydney, the prices have gone up even more. This might sound like good news if you're selling a house, but it can be tricky if you're trying to buy one. But it's not just about the prices. The number of new homes being built is also important. The Australian Bureau of Statistics found that the number of new houses people started building went down by 9% in November 2022. This means there aren't as many new houses coming onto the market, which can make it harder to find a place to live. Even though it's been a bit of a roller coaster, the housing market hasn't crashed. It's actually been pretty steady. Some experts think that house prices might even hit new records. In Melbourne, for example, prices have gone up by 4.3% since they were at their lowest in January 2023. So, what does all this mean for Australia's score? Well, because the housing market is cooling but still firm, Australia gets a score of 7 out of 10. Now, let's take a look at what's happening with houses in Canada. Just like in Australia, the housing market is a big deal in Canada too because it affects everyone, from people buying their first home to those selling one they've had for years. In 2023, Canada's housing market has been facing some severe challenges. House prices have been expected to drop by 15% from their peak in the middle of 2022. This means that if a house was worth $100,000, it could be worth $85,000 now. That's a significant change, and it can make people nervous about buying or selling. Sales of existing homes have also gone down a lot, by over 38% from their highest point in February 2022. This is a sign that fewer people are moving houses. And when fewer people are buying and selling homes, it can make the market slow down even more. But it's not all tough news. The Canadian Real Estate Association thinks that home sales and prices might start to get better by the end of 2023. Interest rates, that's the extra money you pay when you borrow money, have been going up, and that's made it harder for people to get loans for houses. If these rates start to go down, or if people get more money to spend, things could look up for the housing market. Even with these ups and downs, the housing market in Canada hasn't stopped completely. The average home price in September 2023 was $655,507, which is actually a little bit more than before. This shows that even when times are tough, some parts of the market keep going. So what's the score for Canada's housing market? With the downturn and the high costs of borrowing, Canada gets a score of 5 out of 10. To sum it up, Australia stands firm with a solid average score of 6.8, while Canada trails with a score of 5.8 out of 10. After sifting through the numbers, it's clear both Australia and Canada have their share of economic hurdles. Australia's steadier job market and better housing sector contrast with Canada's higher debt load and more volatile housing prices. While neither country is sailing smooth waters, Canada's economy shows more signs of strain under the current global pressures. As the dust settles, it's Canada that appears to face the steeper climb to regain its economic footing. That's it for today. Hope you got value while watching the video, and if you still have questions or comments, don't hesitate to share them in the comment section below. And if you are interested in more videos about economics, make sure to check out the video linked on the screen next. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.